My name is Thomas Reed, I'm 63 years old, and I thought nothing in this world could hurt more than losing my daughter, Lily. Her funeral was held on a cold February morning of 2024, at St. Andrew's Church in Vermont. The pews were full, yet the silence was heavier than stone. The casket was closed, they said the car fire had been too severe. My ex-wife Carol sat beside me, trembling behind dark glasses. Lily's husband, Evan, wept loudly in the front row, his mother Gloria gripping his arm like she wanted an audience. The priest spoke about faith and mercy, but my mind drifted to the last voicemail Lily left me just 2 nights before the accident. She'd sounded frightened, whispering, "Dad, I need to talk to you. Please, don't tell Evan." I never called her back. Then, during the hymn, my phone vibrated in my coat pocket, once, twice, again. I finally looked down. The name on the screen froze my blood, Lily. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit like if you've ever felt your heart stop at the sound of a name you thought you'd never hear again. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. 3 new messages blinked on the screen. "Dad, don't go home after the funeral. They think I'm dead. Trust no one." For a moment, I thought my heart had stopped. The church blurred around me, candles, faces, hymns, all distant, muffled, unreal. I turned my head slightly toward Carol. She was still staring straight ahead, unmoving, the black veil trembling with her breath. Evan's head was bowed, his shoulders shaking as if from grief, yet I noticed his face was dry, calm, deliberate. I stood up, muttering something about needing air. The aisle seemed endless as I walked past the mourners, the priest's voice echoing faintly, "Blessed are those who mourn." Outside, the wind hit me like a slap. The churchyard was empty, white with snow. My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Where are you?" The reply came instantly. "Dad, meet me at Grandma's cabin. The one by the lake. Come alone." The cabin. My mother's old place near Lake Willoughby. It had been locked for 15 years, untouched since she died. No one should have known about it except Lily and me. A sick realization crawled up my spine, if someone else had her phone, they were playing a cruel game. But if it was her, then everything I thought I'd buried that morning was a lie. I got into my car, hands stiff from the cold, and started the engine. The snow was falling harder now, flakes swirling in the headlights like ghosts. Behind me, the church bells began to toll. As I drove, my phone buzzed again, a voicemail, this time. I turned the volume down and played it through the speakers. It was Lily's voice. Shaky. Urgent. "Dad, please. I can't explain everything yet. Just trust me. Don't let Mom or Evan know you're alive. They'll act nice. They'll say they're worried about you. But they're not. They want you quiet." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The road to the lake wound through the forest, narrow, icy, familiar in the worst way. I remembered taking Lily there when she was 10. We'd fish at dawn, drink cocoa by the window, listen to the loons calling across the water. She'd once said, "It's the safest place in the world, Dad." By the time I reached the old turnoff, the snow was knee-deep. The gate hung crooked, half buried in frost. The drive up to the cabin felt like moving backward in time. The porch light was on. Just one dim bulb flickering in the wind. I got out, heart pounding. My boots crunched on the frozen wood as I climbed the steps. I knocked once, then again. The door creaked open. For a moment, nothing moved, just the sound of the wind and the lake shifting under ice. Then, in the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Lily. Her hair was shorter, dyed a dull brown, her face pale, thinner. But her eyes, those blue eyes I knew since the day she was born, stared right into me. "Dad," she whispered, and I felt my chest collapse. I wanted to hold her, to ask 1,000 questions, but she pressed a finger to her lips. "Please. Don't talk loud. She pulled me inside, bolting the door. The cabin smelled of dust and cold pine. Boxes were stacked along the wall, curtains drawn tight. A single lantern burned on the table beside an old thermos. I couldn't stay gone, she said. Not after what they did. I took a shaky breath. Lily, they buried you. I saw the. It wasn't me, she cut in. They needed me gone. They needed you next. Her voice cracked on that last word. She reached into her coat and pulled out a torn envelope. Inside were photocopies, insurance documents, a bank transfer, and Evan's signature beside her name. The date was 2 days after her supposed death. They took out a life insurance policy on me, Dad. $500,000. Evan signed it. Mom witnessed it. And Gloria, she arranged the rest. I stared at the papers, the words swimming in front of me. Carol wouldn't. She would, Lily said quietly. You don't know her anymore. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the wind pushing against the windows. Finally, she said, I tried to warn you. That night I called. I heard them talking about the inheritance, the house, your savings, everything you left in my name. They were arguing about how long it would take once you were gone. Evan said, he's old. It won't be long. And Mom said, we can't wait forever. The room tilted slightly, my breath catching in my throat. I thought of the pills Carol had been giving me, for my heart, she said, and how dizzy I'd felt lately. Lily put a hand on mine. You have to listen, Dad. Don't go home. Don't tell anyone I'm alive. They'll finish what they started. I looked at her, the fear, the exhaustion, the terrible truth she carried, and something inside me shifted. The grief that had crushed me all morning was replaced by something colder. Steadier. All right, I said finally. We'll do this my way. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen lake. Inside, my daughter, the girl I thought I'd buried, sat trembling in the lantern light, alive but hunted. And I realized that whatever had begun with a message on my phone was far from over. It was only the beginning. The drive back from the lake that night felt like waking from a nightmare I wasn't sure I'd ever left. Snow lashed at the windshield, the headlights barely piercing the storm. Beside me, Lily sat silent, wrapped in an old blanket I'd found in the trunk. She looked exhausted, pale, hollow-eyed, but there was a strange steadiness in her face. When we reached the cabin again, she moved with quiet urgency, locking the door, checking the windows, drawing the curtains tight. The place was as I remembered from my mother's last winter, rough pine walls, the faint smell of kerosene, an old clock ticking unevenly. It was strange how quickly it all came back, the chipped mug I used for coffee, the picture of my parents still nailed above the fireplace. Time had stopped here, it seemed, waiting for a truth I hadn't been ready to face. Lily sat at the kitchen table and pushed a stack of papers toward me. I've been collecting what I could, she said. Emails. Transfers. Screenshots from Evan's computer. They think I'm dead, so they stopped being careful. I read through them slowly. There were messages between Evan and Gloria about timing the payout, a copy of an insurance claim filed the morning after the crash, and several transfers, small amounts at first, then larger, to an account in Carol's name. The last one was dated just 3 days before the funeral. I looked up at her. You're saying your mother and Evan? She nodded. It wasn't just them. Gloria was the one who pushed it. She's done this before, Dad. Her first husband, remember how he died suddenly? Heart failure, they said. No one questioned it. The name pulled a memory from somewhere deep, a newspaper clipping from years ago, an obituary I barely read. She planned it all, Lily continued. Evan was supposed to be the perfect husband, polite, educated, dependable. Carol helped make it happen. Gloria promised to take care of her debts, said it would all balance out once you were gone. She even told Mom she could move in with them afterward, that she'd never have to worry again. The words didn't sound real. I stared at the papers in my hands, at my daughter's face, and felt something between disbelief and fury rise in me. When your brakes failed, I said quietly, you knew. Lily nodded. I was driving down the ridge, heading to the shelter with a girl I'd picked up. Her name was Nicole. She was trying to get away from a boyfriend who hit her. I thought I could help. The car started shaking halfway down the hill. The brake pedal went straight to the floor. I managed to jump out after it hit the guardrail. Nicole didn't. Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. The car exploded. The police said it was me, same build, same earrings, same jacket. I didn't correct them. It gave me time to figure out what they'd done. I sat back slowly, feeling the weight of every word. Outside, the storm had quieted, flakes drifted lazily across the window. Why contact me now? I asked. Because they're moving faster than I thought, she said. Mom's been trying to reach the bank, your account. The lawyer who handled your will called her yesterday. I think they're planning to make you disappear next. A silence stretched between us. The cabin creaked softly, the fire hissed in the stove. I can't go to the police, she added. Not yet. They think I'm dead. If I show up now, they'll claim I faked everything, that I did it for the insurance money. I need proof. Solid proof. I looked around the room, the lantern, the snow outside, my daughter hiding like a fugitive, and felt a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Then we'll get it, I said. She studied my face, searching for hesitation. You mean it? I do. But we do it quietly. No rash moves, no panic. You stay here. Don't use your phone again. I'll go home tomorrow, act normal, see what they do. Dad, it's dangerous. I've lived through worse, I said, not unkindly. You just stay alive. That night, I barely slept. I sat by the window until dawn, watching the light spread across the frozen lake. When I finally stood, the world outside looked almost peaceful, clean, white, untouched. It reminded me of what I was fighting for, not revenge, but truth. Before I left, Lily hugged me tightly. If they find out I'm alive. They won't, I said. Not until we're ready. I drove back to town that morning, rehearsing my calm in the mirror of the rearview. When I entered the house, Carol was at the kitchen counter, humming softly. She turned, surprised but smiling faintly. Tom, you shouldn't have driven, she said. You look pale. I just needed to clear my head, I replied. She poured coffee, slid a cup toward me. You've been through so much. Maybe we should sell the lake property. Too many memories. Her tone was light, casual, but it wasn't a suggestion. It was a test. I nodded, pretending to think. Maybe. I'll call the lawyer later. Her smile deepened. Good. It's time we moved on. Evan came by that evening with flowers, lilies, of all things. He was polite, even gentle, but his eyes were hollow. I noticed his hand tremble when he poured my tea. Here, he said. You need to keep your strength up. I watched him closely, then glanced at Carol. Her hand was already on my shoulder, warm and firm. You should rest after dinner, she said. I'll take care of everything. I excused myself soon after, pretending fatigue, but the moment I reached my study, I dialed Lily from my old landline. She answered on the first ring. Dad? They're planning something, I said quietly. Tonight, maybe tomorrow. There was a long pause. Then her voice came through, steady and low, don't drink anything. Don't eat anything they give you. I'll call when it's safe. Her composure both frightened and comforted me. She was her mother's daughter in strength, but she had my patience. I hung up and sat in the dark until midnight, listening to the creaks in the floorboards. Somewhere downstairs, Carol's voice murmured, then a door closed. I waited until the house was silent before I went to the kitchen. The wine bottle stood open, half full. Beside it was a small amber container, the same one she'd been using for months. Heart support supplements. I took the bottle, pocketed it, and poured the wine into the sink. The smell was wrong, metallic, bitter. I didn't need to taste it to know. When I finally went upstairs, I stopped at the doorway to Lily's old room. The walls were still covered with her paintings, a lake at dawn, a cabin, a small boat with two figures inside. A father and daughter. I stood there for a long time before whispering, "Hold on, kiddo. We're almost there." Downstairs, the clock struck 1. Outside, the snow began again, soft, steady, relentless, as if the world itself was erasing the tracks of everything that had come before. And in that quiet hour, I knew what had to be done. Tomorrow, I would follow the truth to its end, no matter who it exposed. I spent the next morning at my desk with a legal pad and a pot of black coffee, drawing a line down the middle of the page, on the left, what I knew, on the right, what I could prove. Lily sat across from me, wrapped in my old flannel, hair tucked into a cap. Her voice was steady. Her hands shook only when she reached for the mug. "The beginning wasn't the engagement," she said. "It was coffee." May of 2022. Mom met Gloria at the Maple Street Cafe. I was there by accident. She told me she'd gone in for a sandwich after a shift at the hospital. Carol was already seated with Gloria near the window. Lily kept her head down and took a booth 2 rows back. She heard Carol say, "You look wonderful," and Gloria answer, "I do what I can," with a laugh that made people look up. Then Lily heard my name. "Thomas thinks the bonds are still safely tucked away," Carol said. "He's sentimental about paper." I felt the heat rise in my neck. The bonds were in a lockbox at Green Mountain Credit Union, purchased over 2 decades, dividends cashed only to help Lily with school and to repair the roof after an ice storm. I hadn't spoken of them to anyone but her. "What else?" I asked. "They talked about your will," Lily said. "Mom told Gloria everything. That I'd inherit the lake house, the bonds, your IRA. She said you'd never change it because you believed in promises made when times were good." Gloria smiled and said, "Then your daughter ought to marry someone practical." Lily passed me a photo, a screen capture from her notes app. On it she typed the date, May 19, 2022, and a line she remembered word for word, "Find a man who can move paper without leaving fingerprints." Gloria's phrase. The next piece was a medical bill. Carol had a habit of leaving mail in Lily's car when she asked her to run errands. One envelope had split open in the summer heat. Out fell a statement from St. Joseph's Rehab Center. Gambling treatment, 12 sessions, insurance denied. Outstanding balance, $8,000. The due date circled in red. That's when Gloria resurfaced, Lily said. She sent Mom a text at midnight, "There are ways to breathe again. Coffee tomorrow?" By fall of 2022, Evan was back in Vermont with a remote job and polished manners. He appeared at a church fundraiser like he'd been rehearsed into the town. He found Lily near the bake sale, offered to carry a tray to her car, and said he remembered her from high school, the art room, the smell of linseed oil. Lily nodded but did not remember him. He remembered everything. 2 weeks later, Carol invited him to dinner. I recall that night perfectly. Evan brought a bottle of wine and a story about his late father's estate. He admired the maple table, asked about the lake, grinned at the old photographs on the wall. "You've built a good life here," he told me. "I respect that." It sounded like praise, it was inventory. Lily handed me printed emails from a Gmail account she'd recovered after Evan left his laptop open. Messages between him and Gloria, subject lines tidy as receipts. We should time the wedding before her father revises. App needs the designation to spouse, not mother, obvious reasons. Carol is on board, she needs relief soon. There was a draft letter to an insurance agent in Rutland outlining a policy, primary insured, Lily Reed. Beneficiary, spouse, to be updated on marriage. Witness, Carol Reed. Proposed coverage, $500,000. Underline under contestability period. What about my will? I asked. Lily looked away. Mom told Gloria you wouldn't change it because you didn't want to hurt me with questions. Gloria said, love is a better tool than paperwork. I thought of the night Carol found the old envelope from my father with the bond's first certificate inside. She'd held it, tracing the printed border. You hold on to history the way other men hold on to grudges, she'd said. I'd taken it as affection. I should have heard the inventory then. The wedding came fast, June 2023. Evan insisted on a small ceremony at St. Andrews. Gloria wrote the check for the reception and called it a gift to family. Carol's smile was a fixed thing those months, like a photograph held too close to a light. On the morning of the wedding, Lily asked Carol in the kitchen, "Are you sure about him?" Carol put her hands on Lily's shoulders and said, "Happiness is a decision." It sounded like congratulations, it was instruction. After the wedding, the pieces slid into place like a drawer closing. Evan urged Lily to add him to her account, for convenience. Carol reminded me, twice, that the lake house was expensive to maintain, that perhaps I should bring Evan into the family conversation about long-term care. Gloria began dropping by unannounced, carrying casseroles and concerns. She asked if my life insurance was current and said she knew a man who could improve it. I told her I didn't like change. She said, with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "Then let the young handle it." What I did not see, Lily did. She overheard a call between her mother and Gloria in September, the words contestability and 2-year window repeated like a lesson. She found a spreadsheet on Evan's laptop titled Plan A with columns, policy, payout timeline, Thomas's assets, liquidation order. Under liquidation, bonds, IRA, lake, sell, main house, rent, vehicles, donate for optics. Optics. How did you get into his laptop? I asked. Lily shrugged. He used my birthday as a password. He thought that would make me feel cherished. In November, I took Carol to a winter market. She asked if I'd thought about revising my medical directives. Just practical, she said, slipping a pamphlet into my coat. If something happens, it's easier on Lily. I told her I'd sign nothing without my lawyer. She squeezed my arm. Of course, she said. When we got home, there was a new bottle on the counter labeled Heart Support, plant-based. She began placing 2 pills beside my coffee each morning like a daily blessing. December is when I heard them say it, Lily said. In the living room. I was upstairs, the heater was loud, and still I heard it. She wrote it on the pad in front of me, each word deliberate, "Once Thomas is gone." I stared at the sentence until the ink blurred. I remembered Carol at our wedding, 30 years earlier, standing in a blue dress she'd chosen because it reminded her of the lake. She'd said, "We'll keep it simple, Thomas. We'll build slow and true." I believed her then because the promise matched my nature. Slow and true. I would say it to myself as I hung shelves, as I sanded floors, as I paid bills on time and sharpened knives in quiet kitchens. Slow and true had built our house. Love had furnished it. But love is not a deed. And family loyalty ends where manipulation begins. The last piece of the past came from a box Lily had pulled from the cabin closet, my mother's old ledger. Tucked between brittle pages was a newspaper clipping from 2004. A man named Harold Pierce, Gloria's first husband, dead at 52, unexpectedly, from heart complications. Lily had circled the word complications in pencil. On the back was a small note in my mother's hand, "Something off here." Watch the widow. She smiles with her teeth. My mother had always said the lake told the truth if you listened. I'd listened to the wind. I had not listened to the water. By the time Lily finished, the pad in front of me was full, names, dates, sums that were not large enough to be cinematic but large enough to ruin a life. 8,000 for rehab. 500,000 for a policy. 480,000 in bonds. 2 houses. 1 plan. I capped my pen and closed the ledger. We don't guess anymore, I said. We prove. How? Lily asked. Quietly. You'll stay here. I'll act as if nothing has changed. I'll let them offer me care. I'll let them put things in my hands. And I'll photograph everything. I tapped the amber bottle on the desk. We start with what they're feeding me. She nodded, but the fear did not leave her eyes. Dad, they'll notice you noticing. I've spent a lifetime being the man everyone overlooks, I said. It's the one advantage I have. For the first time that day, she smiled. It was small, a line of light through heavy cloud. I walked to the window. The afternoon had turned thin and gray, the lake lay flat as a sheet of pewter. In the reflection, I saw a man older than the one who built the cabin steps with his own hands. I also saw the same steadiness. Respect is not inherited. It is kept, plank by plank, even when the house creaks. Behind me, Lily folded the papers back into the envelope and tucked it beneath a loose floorboard. I reached for my coat. The drive back to town would be long, and I needed to be slow and deliberate. At the door, I turned. This ends at a table, I said. Not with shouting. With facts. She knew the table I meant, a dinner, plate set, hands folded, words measured. Exposure in the open, under light. Dignity as the final word. I stepped into the cold and listened a moment. The wind moved through the pines, and somewhere beneath the ice the lake answered, low and certain, as if it agreed. Lily told it to me in pieces, the way a person unwraps a wound to keep from fainting. She had left the hospital late on a Tuesday, February 13th, the air so cold it felt clean. At the edge of town, near the Citgo on Route 5, she saw a girl standing by the plowed berm with a canvas backpack and a cardboard sign that read St. Bridget Shelter. Nicole, 22, wrist stamped from the county clinic, a bruise fading under makeup. Lily offered a ride. Nicole hesitated, then climbed in, careful with the door like things broke around her. They stopped at a garage because the brake light had glowed the day before. The mechanic, a man named Ortiz who had patched my truck for years, slid beneath the car, then slid back out with a look I recognized from bad weather. The lines were scored. The rear hose was nicked. He said, "You shouldn't drive this down a mountain." He could order parts, but not tonight. Lily thanked him, left the car in the lot, and called a ride-share to get the two of them to the shelter before curfew. But Nicole had a plan, or the beginning of one. A cousin in Burke, a room for a week, a number scribbled on a receipt. They decided to pick up Lily's old Subaru, kept at the lake cabin for winters, drive Nicole to Burke, then come back for the other car in daylight. It was practical and kind. Most bad turns start that way. At the cabin, Lily found the spare key in the jar where I always left it. They drove the Subaru toward the ridge, wipers knocking, heater slow to warm. Somewhere past the overlook, Nicole asked to switch cars back when the main road resumed. She wanted the nicer one for the cousin photo, something to post later that looked like escape. Lily said fine. A small wish. They turned around, circled back to Ortiz's, and at 9:30, an attendant saw Lily move her tote, hand Nicole a knit cap, and point out the stiff brake pedal with a half-laugh. The attendant remembered because they laughed at the same joke, the half-laugh people use when a thing isn't funny. Lily watched Nicole pull away in the car with my daughter's plates and my daughter's jacket on the passenger seat, her silver hoop earrings tucked into the ashtray. Lily took them off for night shifts and forgot. Lily followed in the Subaru, keeping distance, planning to trail her until the shelter turn. She lost the taillights near the ridge. What happened next belongs to the mountain, but the police report would later say, speed increased, guardrail compromised by ice, vehicle left the lane and struck a stand of spruce, ruptured fuel line, ignition from hot manifold. The fire was visible from Route 5 for almost a minute. A plow driver called it in. By the time the deputy arrived, the car was a black shell pressed into snow. He radioed the plate. He said the word female over the air. On the shoulder, Lily's phone, her real phone, must have been thrown when she ran toward the heat and stumbled. She found it later in a drift, casing charred, still functioning like a survivor who refuses to be counted. The ID was always going to be sloppy that night. The VIN said Lily. The license in the console said Lily. The jacket on the seat said Lily. The earrings in the ashtray said Lily. A neighbor recognized the car from the hospital lot. Carol arrived before midnight and told the deputy, gently, that the casket must be closed when the time came. "We'll remember her face the way it was," she whispered to him, and the deputy, a man from our church, nodded, because grief teaches us to accept shortcuts. Dental confirmation was pending, the coroner wrote, but the office was short-staffed from flu. DNA would take weeks the county didn't have budget for. Gloria phoned the funeral home before dawn. By noon, the world had decided, and the world hates to revise. "Dad," Lily said, eyes fixed on the table, "I told myself that if I walked into the sheriff's office right then, they'd hand me to Evan and Mom. And the policy clock would keep running. And whatever they gave you each night would keep working." "So you hid," I said. "I hid," she answered. "I used cash from my locker and groceries from the cabin. I took the old phone you and I used up there for fishing weather. I watched the news whisper my name under smoke. And I waited for something clean, something that didn't sound like a daughter's accusation." She found that something in the margins. Ortiz wrote a handwritten note about the brake lines and clipped it to the work order, date, time, VIN. The attendant's statement mentioned 2 young women and switching cars. A camera outside the Citgo caught Nicole climbing into Lily's car at 8:47 p.m., the cardboard sign tucked under her arm. St. Bridget's had a logbook that recorded Nicole's call at 7:59 asking if the beds were full. The counselor wrote, "We'll try tomorrow," beside her first name. None of it shouted, all of it spoke. "What about her family?" I asked. "Her aunt called the sheriff 2 days later," Lily said. "Reported her missing. Said Nicole finally left the boyfriend. Said she'd sent a photo of a cardboard sign. Did the sheriff connect it? Not then. The fire swallowed the rest. We sat in the quiet and let the lake tick in the stovepipe. Guilt is a physical thing at our age. It sits in the ribs. I heard it when Lily breathed. I should have kept her with me," she said. "I should have put her in the Subaru and locked the doors." "You asked a stranger to trust you," I said. "She did, and life turned cruel. That is not the same as harm." Lily nodded, but grief rarely obeys truth the first time it hears it. "How did your phone survive?" I asked, the practical man needing a practical end to the thread. "It skittered into a drift when I ran," she said. "The case melted, but the thing kept a charge like it had something to finish." She looked at me. "It did. There was one more strand, the speed of the funeral. Carol insisted on Friday. The priest was available. Lily would want closure, she told anyone who asked. Evan cried so hard you had to look away. Gloria brought lilies. The funeral director mentioned dental, then backed off when Carol touched his sleeve and said, "Please." I wrote it all on my legal pad, the mechanic's note, the attendant's sighting, the shelter's log, the gas station camera, the aunt's report, the funeral's haste. Underline after underline. Evidence has a way of calming a room. So does patience. Dad, Lily said quietly, if we reopen the grave, Nicole's name will have to come out of that fire. Her aunt deserves to stand somewhere that isn't a mistake. We will, I said. But we do it by the book. No drama. No shouting. The sheriff, a judge, a court order. Evan and Gloria cannot claim we lied. We made a list. Photograph the amber pills and seal the bottle in a plastic bag. Ask Ortiz for a duplicate of the work order and his note, do not mention the fire. Drive to St. Bridget's as a donor, ask to see the logbook, thank them, leave a gift card for their pantry. Meet the attendant at the garage and listen without leading. Pay for his time. Print the Citgo camera still. Lily knew the clerk, a woman named Sarah who sold us worms in summers. Call the funeral director and request the coroner's preliminary report, for insurance. Write the aunt a letter. Not a call. Letters become records. Lily watched me number each line like building steps for a dock, plank by plank. You think this will hold? She asked. Truth always holds, I said. It just takes longer than lies. That afternoon I drove to town and sat with Ortiz on a milk crate in his bay. He is a quiet man with clean hands and a soft way with bolts. When I asked about the lines, he looked at the floor, then at me. I told her not to take it down, he said. She said she'd come back in the morning. Young folks think morning is a promise. He handed me a copy of the ticket. He had written in block letters, do not drive. Rear hose compromised. He underlined do not twice. At St. Bridget's, the director, a woman with gray hair and kind shoulders, brought out the log when I asked how to donate blankets. We keep first names for safety, she said. There it was, Nicole, 7:59 p.m., voice trembling, I'll try tomorrow. I asked for their wish list, wrote a check, and left without a question that would pressure Fresh Mercy into testimony. The garage attendant remembered the knit cap. She had a little star stitched on it, he said. She laughed when the brake pedal went humph. It wasn't funny. He said humph like a man who hears it still. Sarah at the Citgo printed the still. I shouldn't, she said, then lowered her voice. But the whole town owes you. In the image, Nicole's profile was clear enough for the aunt to know and for a judge to move paper. Back home, I used the scanner Lily and I had bought years ago for her art submissions. I made a folder on my computer called Nicole. I do not name things lightly in this house. The last call I made that day was to the funeral home. I asked for the preliminary report. The director hesitated, then said, it notes personal effects, vehicle ID, and next of kin confirmation. No dental? I asked. Pending, he said. We rarely wait when the family insists on a service. His voice held apology, not malice. That evening Lily and I sat at the cabin table while the printer exhaled page after page. I stacked them square. She stared at the top sheet, the still frame from the gas station, and laid her hand on the edge like you steady a photograph in wind. I keep hearing the way the deputy said my name over the radio, she said. Like a verdict. It was only a placeholder, I said. We are giving the system the right name. She nodded and pressed her palm flat until the paper stopped curling. We did not talk about Evan or my ex-wife that night. We did not need to. Their part had already written itself into our days, the amber bottle, the rush to bury, the gentle questions about my will. This chapter belonged to the girl with the canvas backpack and the star on her hat. Dignity is not a resource to be rationed. It is a floor you stand on, even if you helped lay the boards too late. When we were done, I slid the folder into a manila envelope and wrote the date on the tab. February 15, 2024. A Friday. This will end at a table, I said again, the way men say a prayer before lifting something that could break their backs. But before the table, there will be a door with a badge behind it. We will walk through it with our heads up. Outside, the lake held its breath under ice. The wind moved down the ridge, slow and sure, sanding the edges of the day. I poured Lily tea, and we sat without speaking, the printer finally silent, the papers cooling like bread on the rack. Truth emerges slowly, but always. Evidence and patience win over rage. In the morning, we would carry the envelope to the sheriff. And somewhere, an aunt would get a letter addressed to the right grief. Morning came hard and clean. I drove the envelope to the sheriff at 9 sharp, handed it over piece by piece, the garage note, the shelter log, the gas station still, the funeral paperwork, the amber bottle sealed in a freezer bag. He read in silence, jaw tight. When he looked up, he said, "Mr. Reed, we'll need statements and lab work." Quietly. "Don't alert your family." I nodded. Truth moves on paper first. Back at the cabin I told Lily the plan. "No heroics," I said. "We let them talk." She touched my sleeve. "Be careful with the wine." I smiled. "I don't drink what other people pour." Before I left, I called my attorney, Martin Hale, a man who reads statutes like weather. "Vermont's one-party consent," he said. "You can record conversations in your own home." He paused. "Don't bait. Just listen." I set the table at 5 o'clock the way Carol likes it, the old maple runner, white plates, cloth napkins folded square. I placed my phone in a ceramic sugar bowl at the center, voice memo armed, screen dim. A second phone, the cabin flip, sat in my shirt pocket with the camera open and the mic live. I put a clean glass bottle under the sink and taped a label on it, "Wine Sample, February 16, 24, 5:42 p.m. I tested the lid twice. They came in the way people enter a house they think they already own. Carol first, cheeks high with powder, carrying salad. Evan behind her with 2 bottles of Pinot and a careful smile. Gloria last, for at the collar, a casserole held like an award. She kissed the air near my cheek. "Thomas, you are brave to host," she said, her voice low and trained. "Grief should be shared." I took coats, fixed the thermostat, moved slowly, the way older men move when they need time to think. Evan opened a bottle. "I'll pour," he said. I watched his hands. His sleeve brushed the small amber container Carol had placed by my plate like a favor. I slid it, casual as a coin, beneath the lip of the runner with my palm. "Later," I said. He nodded. We ate the first bites with the quiet of people who came for other work. Carol asked after the casserole's neighbors had left. Gloria praised the funeral director. Evan kept refilling my glass. I lifted it, let it touch my lip, set it down. On the second pass, I said, "Help me with the corkscrew in the kitchen, Evan." In the kitchen I tipped my untouched wine into the clean bottle under the sink, filled my glass from a decoy bottle I'd opened earlier, and screwed the sample shut. I labeled it with the time. Evan never looked down. Back at the table, I said grace in 1 sentence. I kept my voice level. "For Lily's life, and for what the living owe the dead." Gloria said amen like a period. We ate. We waited. It does not take much to open the door you want. Carol started. "Tom, I spoke with your primary. He said stress can press on a heart. You should take those supplements. They're plant-based." She pushed the amber bottle toward me with 2 fingers. 2 with dinner. I took the cap off, shook the pills into my palm, slid them into my pocket with my handkerchief, and washed the act with a sip from my decoy glass. "Thank you," I said. "I'll try them." Gloria looked at the mantel. "You've kept the house so lovely," she said. "But upkeep, in this season, can be a burden. Have you thought of consolidating? For rest." Her eyes were on the photograph of the lake. "A sale at the right moment can be a kindness." Evan cleared his throat. "I could help handle logistics," he said. "Banks, titles. You shouldn't worry about paperwork right now. I let a quiet gather. Then I placed my napkin down. Speaking of paperwork, I said, we moved fast with the funeral. Carol's fork stopped. We did what Lily would want, she said. Closure. Dental was pending, I said. The director told me. I looked at my plate. It didn't trouble anyone. Silence like frost. Gloria smiled, composed. In small towns we honor what we know, she said. We knew it was Lily. She switched cars that night, I said softly. A girl named Nicole called the shelter and never made it in. A mechanic wrote, "Do not drive." The Citgo camera caught them together. I folded my hands. These are small truths. They add up. Evan's gaze flicked to Carol, then back to his plate. Why are you telling us this? He asked. So you don't have to carry more than you already do, I said. Grief is heavy. Lies add weight. Carol's voice thinned. Tom, this is cruel. What's cruel, I said, is the pace. I turned my glass idly. Insurance moves on timetables. Contestability periods, beneficiary updates, witness lines. I let the words sit in the room. Gloria, you know those words better than I do. Her smile hardened at the edges, then smoothed. We are not in an office, she said. We are at your table. Then let's stay with family, I answered. Carol, you signed as witness on a policy. Evan, you filed a claim within 24 hours. You wept well at the church. You also asked me twice this week about my will. Evan's voice wavered, gentle as ever. I was trying to help, sir. Then help me with one thing, I said. Why the supplements? Carol's eyes filled with fast tears, the sudden kind that ask for a pause. Because you won't see a cardiologist. Because you are stubborn. She reached for my hand. I cannot lose you too. I pulled my hand away, slowly. What's in them? I asked. Plants, she said. The word fell flat. I set my fork down and leaned back. When a man is tired at night, people call it age. When he is dizzy at breakfast, people call it grief. When his hands shake after tea, people tell him to rest. I looked at each of them. But I keep a ledger. My mother taught me. Doses are entries, and patterns balance. Gloria's eyes traveled to the kitchen doorway, measuring distance. We came to comfort you, she said. Then be comfortable, I said, and smiled for the first time. Tell me how you know the term contestability. Evan stood. I should use the restroom, he said, voice too smooth. He left his phone face down on the table. Carol dabbed at her eyes. Gloria adjusted her necklace. The clock in the hall clicked once. The recording in the sugar bowl kept listening. I rose and gathered plates as if I had nothing left to say. In the kitchen I opened the trash and dropped 2 pills from my pocket into a paper cup. I poured the merest sip of the decoy wine over them, stirred with a skewer, and slid the cup into a zip bag. Evidence has a way of looking like refuse until someone needs it. When I returned, conversation had resumed in low tones, the kind people use 2 rooms over at wakes. Evan re-entered with his face reset. We should go through her things this weekend, he said. For donation. It helps to make space. Saturday, Gloria added. I'll bring boxes. We can do the drawers. She glanced at the mantel again. And the lockbox. Paper breeds mildew. I have a fireproof one at home. The bonds are dry, I said. 3 pairs of eyes found me at once. I let the silence stand, then I nodded to the kitchen. Dessert, I said. Blueberry pie from the church ladies. Carol, would you slice? She followed me in, put her purse on the counter, lifted the knife, breathed. Her hands were steady now. I took 2 plates down and kept my voice level. You met Gloria at Maple Street Cafe in May 2022, I said. You told her about my will. She told you love moves paper better than law. You believed her. She stared at the pie. You're making stories, she whispered. I have the dates, I said. I have the balances. You had debts. She had a method. Evan had clean hands. I paused. You were once the kindest person I knew. Her chin lifted by habit before a lie. She set the knife down carefully. I am still kind, she said. Kindness looks different when you're saving a family. I stepped back so she could pass. We'll see, I said. We ate pie at the table like neighbors. Gloria complimented the crust. Evan asked about the heater's brand. Carol folded her napkin into neat squares, then unfolded it. The recording held them all in their chosen tones. When it was over, I walked them to the door as if nothing had shifted. Gloria put on her gloves. Sleep well, she said. Call if you need anything. She looked at me a fraction too long. Anything. Evan hugged me, quick and staged. Carol lingered. Tom, she said softly, don't sit up late. Your heart. She touched my chest with 2 fingers, then let her hand fall. I closed the door behind them and listened to the driveway. Their voices blurred, then faded, then the car started. I stood in the hall until the house stopped echoing. Then I lifted the sugar bowl, saved the file, and sent a copy to the cloud account I keep for tax receipts. I labeled it, dinner_021624_audio. I placed the wine sample in the fridge, the cup with the dissolved pills in the freezer, and the amber bottle in a new bag with today's date. At 11:12 p.m. my phone vibrated on the counter. A text from Lily, are you safe? I wrote back, yes. They are moving to the next step. She answered, Mom just called me by habit at 10:59. Hung up. She'll go to Gloria soon. I typed, I'll be ready. At 11:40, the motion light above the driveway clicked on. Through the curtain, I watched Carol cross the porch alone, coat unbuttoned, keys in her fist like a plan. I took my keys from the dish, lifted the recorder from the platter where I'd left it by the door, and put on my boots. Grief had set the table. Evidence had said the blessing. Now the night would carry the rest. I turned off the lamp, opened the door to the clean cold, and followed. I kept 2 car lengths back and let the taillights guide me down Maple Avenue. The storm had softened to a dry glitter, the kind that makes sound carry. Carol turned left on Birch, then right toward the cul-de-sac where Gloria lived in a low, brick house with bright brass numbers and a porch light that burned all night. I parked beneath a maple, killed my lights, and let the engine tick itself quiet. At 11:57 p.m. Carol hurried up the walk, coat open, hair lifting in the wind. The door unlocked before she knocked. Gloria's silhouette, compact, practiced, filled the frame. I set my phone in the cradle on the dash, voice memo open, sensitivity high. One-party consent had never felt like a moral question, it felt like a duty. Through the front window, frosted at the corners from the cold, I saw them move to the kitchen. The light above the sink came on, white, unforgiving. I cracked my window an inch. The sound came clean in the winter air, glasses on tile, the low scrape of a stool, Carol's breath catching. It's done, Carol whispered. He's asking questions. About dental. About timing. Gloria's voice did not change temperature. Questions are air, she said. They pass. Sit. Warm your hands. A drawer opened. Something clinked, a teaspoon against glass. Carol again, smaller, he didn't drink the wine. Gloria gave the sound of a half laugh, no joy in it. You always leave too much to chance. There are other routes. We will not be greedy with fate. She moved to a cupboard and took down a small bottle. Even from the street I could see the glass, amber, dropper top, the label peeled at one corner. Carol lowered her voice. It makes me sick to think of it. Then don't think, Gloria said. Measure. 3 drops. Morning and night. A week and a half, the heart remembers it is tired. If he sees a doctor, they will call it grief and age. They always do. Men of his generation pride themselves on quiet suffering. Use that. 3 drops, Carol repeated, as if memorizing a recipe. The recorder on my dash caught every word. I watched their reflections in the black window, the room beyond them neat as a brochure. Gloria poured a finger of something clear into a cut-glass tumbler, swirled it, and set it in front of Carol like a sacrament. After, Gloria said, we move quickly. Evan files for probate. The bonds go first. Never keep paper in a house built by a sentimental man. Houses go to market. We are generous in public, donations, a scholarship at the church in Lily's name. Optics. You make it sound like kindness, Carol said. It is kindness, Gloria replied, snapping the word clean. To yourself. To your son-in-law. To a family without chaos. Thomas will not feel another winter. Evan will have the means to build. You will have a room that faces the light. Carol's hands trembled around the glass. She did not drink. You promised me I wouldn't have to be poor again. I promised you would not have to be afraid, Gloria corrected. Poor is a number. Afraid is a state. We are correcting the state. A silence followed, the kind that happens when someone tries to grow a conscience and finds there's no soil. Then Carol said, soft as a confession, I hear him moving at night. He stands in Lily's room. He touches the frames. He is good. Gloria's reply was swift and surgical. Good men are the easiest to move. They do not expect harm. That is why the world gets built. I felt my jaw tighten, then loosen. I pressed my palm flat against the steering wheel until the leather warmed. The recorder's red line kept crawling. Carol wiped at her eyes with the heel of her hand. And if he changes the will? Then we remind him he is tired, Gloria said. We bring him tea. We take away his car keys for safety. We call his doctor. We are daughters and we are caretakers and we are devout. The court will nod. Paper listens to performance. Contestability? Carol asked, stumbling over the syllables like an unfamiliar hymn. 2 years, Gloria said. We are well within. We have the policy, we have the witness signature, we have the beneficiary. If questions come, they are paper questions. Paper obeys dates. Evan said the sheriff has been calling around, Carol whispered. About the girl in the car? Gloria shrugged. Let the town do its sad arithmetic. It will not change the outcome. The sheriff eats my pound cake at Christmas. He is kind. Kind men hate to be wrong. He will not make himself wrong unless he must. They moved then, the way people move when the plan has been blessed. Carol took the small bottle and slid it into her purse with careful hands, like lifting a sleeping bird she hopes won't wake. Gloria wrote something on a notepad, tore the page, and tucked it into Carol's palm. These are reminders, she said. Dosage. Phrases to use. You always choose too much truth under pressure. At 12:22 a.m., Carol stood. I'll go home through Cedar, she said. Less salt. Fewer lights. Gloria reached for her coat and drew her close the way a mother claims a child in a photograph. We are almost through the moment that requires nerve, she murmured. After that it is just manners. Thomas will be alone, Carol said, and for the first time her voice held something like fear. Everyone is alone at the end, Gloria answered. Our work is to make sure the paperwork is not. They moved toward the door. I dipped lower in the seat, breath slow, the cold slipping into the car like a messenger. The porch light clicked on. They stepped out, and their words came clearer, clean as iron. "Once Thomas is gone," Gloria said, "Evan signs. You carry Grace. I handle the office. And we do not look back." I did not close my eyes. I did not lift my head. I let the words enter the recorder and stay there, permanent as frost in shade. They embraced quickly. Carol hurried to her car, started it, and drove away without checking the rearview. Gloria watched the taillights vanish, then stood on the porch another beat, chin lifted, listening to a night that had decided its own weather. She turned out the light and closed the door. I sat very still, listening to the engine ticking as it cooled. The house was dark again. I saved the recording and sent a copy to the cloud. I sent a second copy to Martin Hale with a single line, *, we have the spine of it. *, I texted Lily, *audio. Clear. She is the architect. *, Lily replied at once, *, I'm here. I'm breathing. *. On the drive home I took Cedar because Carol had said she would. The road was unplowed in places, the snow dry and whispering. My hands were steady on the wheel. At the first stop sign I felt the smallest tremor run through me, not fear, not anger, something like grief giving way to purpose. A man can hold both. Back at the house I placed the phone on the desk, backed the file up to a thumb drive, wrote the time on a sticky note, and stuck it to the plastic. I slid the note into the same drawer where my mother's ledger kept watch. I made tea with water boiled in a clean pot and drank it at the sink like a man who has no taste for celebration. At 1:11 a.m. Carol came in quietly, the way people enter a room when they want the furniture to think it dreamed them. I could smell the sharp, rooty sweetness of whatever she had carried home. She hung her coat, stood in the dark kitchen, and opened the cabinet where the mugs live. I didn't move. She closed it again, went to bed without turning on a light. I slept in the armchair by the window, boots off, coat on, the recorder on the table beside the empty cup. When the first pale rectangle of morning came over the neighbor's roof, I stood, smoothed the runner on the dining table, and gathered the things that had become our evidence, the amber bottle in its bag, the wine sample, the cup in the freezer, the notes. I looked at Lily's painting on the wall, a lake, a small boat, 2 figures. I said out loud, "We are not shouting. We are showing." At 8, Carol walked into the kitchen in her robe. She looked at me the way a person looks at a stranger who resembles someone they once loved. "You didn't sleep," she said. "I slept enough," I answered. I poured her coffee, set it down without the pills, and met her eyes. "I'm going to the sheriff's office at 9. Her hand tightened around the mug. "Why?" "Because Nicole has a name," I said. "Because Lily had a life. Because I have one." She opened her mouth, closed it, and nodded once, as if taking dictation from a teacher she didn't respect but had to pass. I left before she could think of any words that would bruise us both. On the porch, the air was clean and hard. The world looked scrubbed. I felt the same inside. In the truck, the recorder sat where I had left it, small and patient. I touched it with 2 fingers like a blessing. On the way to the station, my phone buzzed. A message from Lily, *Dad, I'm ready. I wrote back, so is the truth. The plan had never been revenge. It was light. Light at a table. Light on a label. Light on a voice that had trained itself to sound like help. By noon, I would hand over the night. By evening, the names would start to move on paper. And somewhere in that movement, the woman behind it all would step from the shadow she had built and find the daylight exact. The sheriff took our envelope at 9:06 a.m. on Friday, February 16th. He called in his sergeant, closed the blinds, and listened to the kitchen audio twice. He did not take notes the second time. He simply stared at the wall until the last word, "Once Thomas is gone," faded into the room. Then he signed 2 forms and handed me a carbon copy. "We move by the book," he said. "No talking outside this office." By noon, a judge in Newport signed 3 orders: search, seizure, and a temporary freeze on related insurance disbursements. The lab courier took my wine sample and the little paper cup from the freezer. At 3:40 p.m., the toxicology tech called the sheriff, positive for digitalis glycosides in the liquid, consistent with concentrated extract. At 4:10, a deputy carried the amber bottle out of my kitchen in a sealed bag. Its white label showed only a lot code and the word support. Paper does not care for euphemism. Saturday began with 2 knocks. The first, at 8:12 a.m., at Gloria's bright brass door. Officers stood in her tidy foyer while a woman from the county opened a cabinet above the sink and removed a twin bottle to mine. The second, 20 minutes later, at my house. Carol stood in her robe while the warrant was read. She tried to speak. The sheriff lifted his hand. "Ma'am, not today." Evan arrived mid-search with a box of donation bags and stared as if the script had changed without telling him his lines. The deputy asked for his phone and laptop. He surrendered them, the courtesy still on his face, the color gone. At 1:30 p.m., the 3 of them sat in separate rooms at the station. I gave a recorded statement, anchor steady, dates and objects laid in order, Maple Street Cafe, May 2022. Policy application, August. Wedding, June 2023. Mechanic's note, February 13, 2024. My dinner table, the recording, the dosage. I said digitalis once and left it to the science. At 4:05 p.m. The sheriff looked up from a stack of screens seized from Evan's car and said, "Here." On the display, a spreadsheet titled Plan A, columns for policy, payout, assets, liquidation order. Under optic someone had typed, scholarship in Lily's name. I signed the evidence log and sat back. A man can feel anger leave him like weather leaving a field. Monday, February 19, the state's attorney filed 3 charges, attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and tampering with a motor vehicle. Bail was argued at 2 p.m. The judge listened, head tilted, hands folded. She denied Gloria, set Carol and Evan each a figure they could not meet. When the hearing ended, I walked out past the bulletin board with the community flyers, suppers, a plow for sale, a lost dog, and felt the simple mercy of ordinary life continuing around justice. That same afternoon, with the orders in hand, the sheriff called St. Brigid's and the funeral director. The grave was reopened under a gray sky on Wednesday. The coroner said the sentence I had waited to hear, female, early 20s, not Lily Reed. By Friday, a letter reached an aunt in Burke. Her reply arrived on lined paper, "Thank you for giving her back her name. It sits in my ledger now, between my mother's note about Gloria and a receipt for 2 coffees at a diner on Route 5. Lily came in at dusk that day, coat zipped to her chin. We met the sheriff in his office. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once, as if saluting a soldier returning from a quiet front. He took her statement without hurry. When she was done, he closed his file and said, "Ms. Reed, Vermont owes you accuracy." It was exactly the right word. News trickled, then poured. Headlines were careful: laboratory confirms poison in alleged bereavement plot. Funeral held for wrong woman, investigation widens. People in town brought casseroles again, this time without asking to come in. My attorney filed motions to reverse the insurance claim and to secure my accounts. I changed the beneficiary lines with a pen that clicked satisfyingly. Slow and true. In March, Lily and I left Vermont. We drove west in a used pickup with an even engine and no history. At the New York state line, she put her hand on the dash and said, "We're not running." I said, "No. We're arriving elsewhere." We settled in Oregon, in a small lake house my father once kept for summers. The windows face water that changes color with the hour. I replaced a warped board on the dock. Lily planted lavender along the path. We wrote a check to St. Brigid's Pantry in Nicole's name and another to a shelter in Portland. Glory prefers optics. We prefer records. In June, I stood in a courtroom in Vermont for the arraignment. I wore the suit I was married in, let out at the waist. I watched 3 people take their seats at the defense table and kept my hands closed on the bench. There was no shouting. Only the clerk reading charges, the defense asking for time, the judge setting dates. Justice is not a shout, it is a schedule. When it ended, I walked outside and called Lily. It moved forward, I said. She exhaled. Good, she answered. We talk like that now, short, precise, grateful. Some evenings I sit on the dock with coffee and listen to the light go thin. I think of my mother's ledger and the note she left about a widow who smiled with her teeth. I think of the maple table and the ceramic sugar bowl and a recorder that did its small job. I think of Nicole's aunt opening an envelope that corrected the world by a fraction and made it right enough to stand on. Respect is not inherited. It is kept. I keep it now by tending small things, tight lids on jars, honest lines on forms, the habit of answering my daughter's call on the first ring. This morning the lake was the color of pewter and then, suddenly, of coin. A loon called once. Lily laughed from the kitchen at a message from a friend. I looked at the empty chair by the window and felt the clean weight of a house where the truth is welcome. I poured another cup and sat very still. The breeze came through the screen, smelling of pine and water. Somewhere, paper was moving, slow and sure. And here, at last, the house was quiet, and safe again.